Hello, hello. This is Philippe Caz. I am the CEO of ReadWrite Labs. Welcome to the Intelligence Assistant and SmartBot State of the Industry weekly webinar from ReadWrite Labs. For those who don't know ReadWrite Labs, we are an industry catalyst. We are dedicated to the business of connected things. That includes the Internet of Things, the industrial IoT, and more broadly, anything that has to do with digital transformation. We provide secondary research that is accessible on our platform at ReadWrite Labs. We also provide custom primary research by surveying our community of about 700,000 technology users. Who are also subscribers to our technology newsletter. We have been founded in 2014. We have offices in the US and in Asia, and we are one of the leading voice on emerging technology trends. And what we do is we do this by building landscapes. If you're looking at how we're doing it, we have built an AI platform that basically understand the trends that are happening in the IT industry, and we identify everything within a specific industry. We categorize it and we put it into a platform that we match with insights from our leading experts and our community, and we provide, at that point, we provide a lot of information from weekly newsletters, from monthly briefing, from those webinars that we're going to see. Through the platform, we track about tens of thousands of companies across the IoT economy, and that includes smart cloud, smart enterprise, smart data, smart consumers, and connected things. Next slide. Today I'm very excited to have Nicolas joining. Nicolas is a man of several craft. One of them is a very accomplished executive of the consumer X industry. He was, for those who know, he was the COO of Genesis Telecommunication, who is focused on call center. After that, he decided to focus his time on advising startups and providing research in the customer engagement, sales tech, and more broadly the consumer X information. And he authored 3 market landscape that we did together around three different aspects of consumer X, consumer interaction management, sales tech, and what we're going to talk about, conversational AI. And so if we go to conversational AI, and why is this relevant to IoT and the business of connected things? Intelligence assistance is a way that people are going to interact with their environment around them. So interact with companies, but also interact with their device as they are going to move forward. So right now we are at the very early stage of that. We are going to see even more. The other place where I think there is a lot of interesting opportunities for intelligence assistant is in the interaction between companies and their customers, and that interaction is going to be both ways. So one way is company to customers, but also customers to company. And so that's a main thrust of digital transformation. So if I look at intelligence assistant, it's a pillar of customer X and IoT as well. And so with that, I'm going to pass the baton to Nicolas, who is going to take on the presentation. One last thing before I let you go. If you have any question, look in the middle of your screen. There is a button that says Q&A. ask your question there, and if the question is in the flow, I will ask it to Nicolas. But if the question is a little bit off topic, I will keep it for the end of the session and asking to Nicolas, ask the question to Nicolas then. All right. With that, let's get going. Nicolas?
Hey, thanks, Philippe. The agenda will be covering 5 topics. What is intelligent assistance, conversational AI, why it matters, how it works, who are the players, and what are the trends where the industry is going. And I apologize, by the way, for the sound of my voice. I'm recovering from a cold, which is a little bit crazy when you think that home for me is San Francisco and this time of the year. In any event, hopefully you will be able to understand me. So the term intelligent assistance was actually initially coined by Opus research analyst Dan Miller, and he defines it as a combination of machine intelligence and conversation to help people accomplish specific goals. And today it remains, in my humble opinion, the best definition for the market. There are other terms that sometime you may hear. We talk about this market. So bots, chatbots is a term that in particular the public likes very much. And it's a bit challenging because you have all types of bots. You have scripted bots, and the types of bots that are included in this market are intelligent one powered by AI that can actually have a meaningful conversation with a human. The other term sometimes used is conversational AI. Forrester, Gartner lately have been publishing a lot about conversational platforms. These are these emerging platforms that enable either a application developer or an enterprise to create assistant and bots. I personally think that those different terms are pretty much the same market. They put the emphasis on different elements of it, but I view them as one single market. So why should we care? A couple of weeks ago, I was at the Conversational Conference, and we had the opportunity to have John Chambers, the former chairman and CEO of Cisco Systems, to share his perspective. And for those of you that know him, you know that he has always been very focused on discussing with CEOs of companies across the globe, and he remained extremely connected. And he presented the 3 things that top the CEO agenda today: innovation, customer experience, and security. And these are not fads. These are enduring trends that have been actually already topping the executive agenda and that are going to continue to play a key role, to be a key focus. And when you think about it, if today your product is not a commodity, it will become. And customer experience, the experience you can offer to your customer is going to become to be your differentiator, whether you like it or not. And second, a lot of companies are thinking, I need to innovate before being innovated. And when you look at assistants and bots, it's actually technology that helps you address those 2 issues. Let me give a couple of examples. The first one is, it ties to Alexa as an example, but I want you to think about assistant as an enabler for brand to be present on any channel at any time. And when you think about it, Alexa can be sitting on the table of your kitchen, and you can, when you need it, ask a question. The second reason why assistant is strategic is because of the importance of messaging as a communication channel. There's a lot of companies that are today offering support over the messaging channel with bots. And customers are embracing this mode of communication. It's fast. The conversation remains in context. You can come back at any time. And when you think about it, it addresses two major frustrations that we've all had as consumers with call centers. We hate having to wait, and we hate having to repeat ourselves. Messaging from a communication standpoint is addressing those two issues. And not only it's convenient to customers, for customers, but it also helps businesses provide service in a cost-effective manner using self-service. Third, messaging and bots combined can help you engage customers. This is a screenshot from Drift, and I want you to think about what Drift or Intercom, and there's a few other players, are able to offer. We live in a digital world, so for businesses, it has become critical to be where the customers are. And combining messaging, combining bots together gives you the opportunity to be present at scale wherever your customers are. For those three reasons, assistants and bots help company innovate, and they help company provide differentiated building blocks, experiences. So let's shift gears, and before we look at the market, let's look at the building blocks, the anatomy of an assistant. So an assistant or bot can interact through all kinds of modalities. It can be online, it can be on a smart device, it can be using voice, it can be interacting with an object. And the object can be a big one, like a car, or it can be a very small one. So regardless of the modality, you need first the user interface to interact with the customer. If the modality used to interact is voice, you need speech technology to translate what was said into text and back when you provide a response to the user. The second building block is natural language processing. Natural language.
Nicolas, sorry to interrupt. If you could use your mouse to show where you are in the presentation, that would be great. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks. So user interface and speech if required. The third building block is natural language processing and natural language understanding. This is a piece of technology driven by AI that will make sense of what the user of the assistant or bot is looking to do, is looking to accomplish. And it creates a notion of intent. What is the desired outcome of the question being asked? A key element in order to build intent is to know the context. Sometimes the context can be implicit. If you call a website about travel, you know that it's about travel. But in many cases, you need a finer level of context that will come from connecting and pooling, retrieving the context of whoever is using the bot from different types of systems. This is a context. Once you have determined the intent, you can decide what to do. The first thing is to respond to the question. And to do that, you tap on knowledge to provide a response. And if the response has to be said instead of providing in writing, you will use text-to-speech. Now, there are cases where it's better to actually escalate or transfer the interaction from the user to a human, or there are cases where the bot or the assistant is finding it doesn't have the answer and wants to pass it on to a different system. So you have a layer that will do both the dialogue management and the routing. And of course, all this works because it's a learning system through analytics. So the entire stack needs to be instrumented. Those analytics will tell you what works, what doesn't, and will help you identify new use cases that can be taken on by the assistant. So from a market standpoint, it translates into two big categories. the assistants and the bots, and all the underlying conversational technologies and the machine learning intelligence. So today, the assistant market has kind of matured a lot, and we can bucketize assistants into 5 major categories. The first one are digital assistants. What those assistants and bots are doing, they are assisting people interacting with technology or interacting with objects. So in the context of technology, the most popular assistants such as Apple Siri, Google Assistant, Amazon Alexa are typical examples. But to tie it back to the Internet of Things, assistants become the way to interact with all kinds of other intelligent objects. And the perfect example is a car. A connected car uses assistant technology to interact with the very complicated and sophisticated environment of a car. The second categories are what we call personal advisors. These are assistants that will help you accomplish a complex task. Think about investing. Think about health problems. These are complicated tasks, and the assistant can actually, through a series of question and answer, help you, advise you on to accomplish the goals that you're trying to accomplish. The third category of assistants is for conversational marketing. We touched it a bit when we spoke about how brands are today trying to engage and be present wherever the consumers are. So those bots and assistants will assist consumers. So these are branded, typically assistants that will try to assist consumers that are exploring their options or looking for information in the early stages of the journey, and hopefully will be able to engage with the consumers. The fourth category is sometimes called virtual customer assistant, and help people with support and services. It has been historically where most of the assistants and bots started. And the final category, which is a new one, emerging, but where there's a lot of innovation, is for employee assistants. These are assistants that help someone in his or her role of being an employee. So it can be for general productivity topics, help me schedule an appointment. It can be to carry out a difficult assignment. So think of a marketing person having to program and set up a digital advertisement campaign. There are many things you need to think about. And an assistant can actually guide you through the different steps to make sure that you do not oversee anything. And finally, we start to see assistants that help employees to deal, for example, with benefits, so and their capacity of employees. So these are the 5 prominent categories of assistant. On the technology and platform side, first we have speech. So speech to text, text to speech. We have avatars that are technologies that give a face to an assistant. We have emotion and sentiment. You can use AI to actually understand and guess with pretty good accuracy what is the emotion of a person interacting with a machine. And it can be very important in the context of customer service, for example. The mood of a person can directly influence what you're going to do with this interaction. But as well, for the general public interacting with machine, it's important to have this type of information. And last but not least, we believe that authentication needs to be an integral part of some assistance. So as soon as the assistants need that the user is authenticated, you want to do it in a way that won't break the fluid experience of the assistant. This is why you need technologies such as biometric to help identify and authenticate the person using the bot or the assistant in a seamless manner. A lot of the underlying technology uses AI. So first is natural language processing to understand what is being said using either voice or text and make sense of it. But as well, machine learning and other techniques such as semantic search is critical to find out the type of use cases, find the information. So there's a lot of AI technology that is being used. We believe that the assistant is as good as the answers it can provide to its users. So knowledge is critical, and knowledge can be hard. So knowledge management technology is another critical building blocks. And as we spoke, analytics are very important as well. And analytics is not just the instrumentation of every single step. It's analytics that can look at an entire conversation and provide valuable insight about it. So the sheer numbers of boxes that we have suggest a certain level of complexity. So we've seen a lot of development platforms that are actually lumping all those capabilities together and offering a set of APIs for developers, be them enterprises or application developers, to build their own assistant. So this translates to the full blueprint. It's a little bit scary, but what we have is the simpler view that I presented step by step. What we've done as part of this effort together with Opus Research is we've further broken down the different categories of assistants, and you can see that the labels are pretty self-explanatory. The other things that we've done is we look at, there's two types of capabilities that you can expect from a platform, from the development platform. Number one is the platform can shield the complexity of AI and all the conversational technology that you use. This is function number one. Second, we have a lot of potential channels. So we have speech, we have messaging, we can have email, and in the categories of messaging, we have Messenger, Facebook Messenger, we have WhatsApp, we have now Apple has launched its business chat, we have Google RCS. There's actually many variants of messaging. So it becomes difficult for developers as well to access all those modalities, and a platform can help normalize all those different channels. And this is what you probably wanted to see, the full landscape. There's about 350 players. It's a little bit hard in the format of a webinar to discuss it, so we will be sharing, of course, the recording and the slides of this webinar for you to further explore the landscape. So the market is estimated to be about 2 billion as we speak. This is the
Nicolas, we have a question from the audience from a slide above, which was, what is conversational marketing?
So conversational marketing are, I'm going to give examples to facilitate. So would be solutions from companies like Drift or Intercom. What they do is they sit on the website and they kind of replace the historical chat experience with an assistant. So if you think about the chat experience you have on most websites, first of all, 1 out of 4 or 5, I think I forgot the number is coming from Forrester Chat, remains unanswered. So you type in a box a question and you're not sure you will get an answer. Second, a chat is a connected mode. So if you want to move on to do something else, you lose the context of the chat. So those conversational marketing assistants will be able to offer to slot in the form factor of a chat online on the website a bot. The bot will make sure that even if nobody's available, you get answers. If simple answers can be provided automatically by the assistant, and your conversation is kept, it's part of the messaging stream. So if you drop off, people can ask you for your email and follow up on email. If you were on the mobile site, you actually can continue and reconnect to the same conversation. So this is conversational marketing. Back to the market, Opus Research, and I provided the link to the latest report, estimated the market to be $2 billion this year, and it's expected to triple by 2021. I like to look at the landscape by bucketizing the participant into 5 categories. So there's a couple of acronyms. The two on the left side are known as the FAMGAs and the BACs. So these are large technology providers that are focused on consumers. So FAMGA is an acronym that stands for Facebook, Apple, Microsoft, Google, and Amazon. And BATEX stands for Baidu, Alibaba, Tencent, and Xiaomi. I apologize, I'm incapable of pronouncing the last brand. These are the 4 Chinese counterparts, if you wish, of the FAMGAs. All those players are, so there's some nuances between the 2 categories because of local market conditions, but all those players are massively investing into conversational AI and assistance, because the vision is that over time it will become how consumers are going to enter the digital space. So all those companies are developing speech, are developing AI, are in order to become the preferred entry point into the digital world. And I think what's happening is no different than what happened a few years ago with search. There were, back in the days, about 10 large companies that were competing to become the best search engine. That's a battle that has since been won mostly by Google. Today, we are going through a major technology transition with assistants and bot playing a bigger role, and a similar battle is happening. So the third categories are the...
Nicolas, on those lines, do you expect one player winning all like Google did in search, or do you expect more fragmentation?
It's very difficult. So the history has told us that the market, typically it's a winner-take-all market. That being said, the channels are extremely fragmented. Even Facebook, when you draw the map of the world, you see that in some countries, people are using mostly Facebook messengers, and in other countries, they're using WhatsApp. So you have voice, and when you look at Android and iOS, you have different types of assistants. So I want to be prudent. Right now, the market is pretty disaggregated. History tells us that one should win. I'm not sure because of the multiplicity of modality, and as well as an issue of trust. When you think about it, all those entry points have a lot of data about yourself. And we see that the public is getting concerned about that. Of course, it gives access to a lot of free services, so it's very attractive. But we start to see behavior, in particular in younger generation, trying to split their digital the digital, I would say, avatars across multiple properties? It's a good question. I'm afraid I can't give a definite answer on that. So back on the third category is the business application suite providers. So IBM, Salesforce, Oracle, SAP, they build comprehensive suite with a lot of data. And they see that it's hard to use the suite. So they're finding that conversational AI provide new ways to make sense of those data and as well get more out of it. So we've seen IBM with Watson, Salesforce with Einstein massively investing in AI at large with a strong focus as well on conversational AI. The fourth category is a nascent one. The list of players is by no means a final list, and it's going to be very fluid. It's actually the 6 players that Gartner mentioned they see the most shortlisted. These are companies, I'm not sure, 24/7 artificial solution, NextIT, who was a specialist both by Verint, IPsoft, and Nuance. So I put ... because it's very fluid, but we start to see those companies sizable. These are players with a couple of hundred people focused on the market, and the strategic nature of this market is such that we probably will see a few specialists emerging. And finally, a lot of startups. When you think that there's a total of 350 players, participants, so there's a lot of startups. And this is a space where there's a lot of innovation, there's a lot of use cases. So it's a very nice space to be in as a startup. Let's talk about the trend. Look, the first is experience is a new differentiation. So product, like I mentioned before, if they're not yet a commodity, will become very rapidly a commodity. So all companies are thinking strategically about the customer experience as this sustainable differentiation. And the key role, the strategic nature of assistants and bots is to be an ingredient to enable businesses implement or for the type of customer experience that can make them different. The second trend that we touch a bit is that messaging transform communication. So it's a new style of communication. It's convenient, it's ubiquitous, it adapts very well to mobile form factors, and it's truly transformational. And actually, we've seen many businesses that see the value of this type of communication, where we give back time to the user, the consumers, where the context is actually baked into the communication. We've seen many companies trying to shift and steer some of the communication that before was happening using voice or using email, those type of historical channels of communication, that are trying to steer consumer to use messaging because of that. Third is speech. It's a technology that has been completely revolutionized by AI. So today, AI-powered speech, translation to text back and forth, has reached the level of accuracy of human. A few months ago, Google made a demo of its duplex technology, and let's face it, people were freaking out because the machine was sounding so much like a human that people didn't know if they were talking to a machine or a human. So AI has created a new set of speech technology that is, one, super accurate, and number two, much easier to deploy. Before, in order to use technology for a given application, you had a significant project to actually tune the speech technology to recognize the terminology of the topic. With AI, that learning goes way, way faster. And despite the traction of messaging and digital channels, voice matters. And there's a lot of things where voice represents a unique modality that is best suited to do it. So with the progress, we should see that speech is going to play a bigger role. Both bots are getting specialized. When you discuss with projects, they usually start small, and the scope of what is undertaken by the bot or the assistant grows. And the industry is getting to the point where people recognize that bots, they're good to do a certain set of things, and the best is to focus the usage on that specific set of things. So that is actually reflected in the diversities of categories in the landscape I shared just before. And it's going to continue to be like that. So in the world where you have different types of bots that are specialized, and where if a bot is enabled to handle the question of a customer, or if the assistant detects that this type of conversation is one that a company wants to have in person with a consumer, you need a form of routing, dispatching, a form of orchestration capabilities. So Opus Research users coined the term metabots for those bots of bots. I've heard Gartner using the word concierge, and these are general purpose bot and assistants that don't necessarily are going to find the answers, but they are smart enough to understand the questions that you are asking and to be able to route the interaction to the proper bot. So this notion of orchestrating the experience will probably happen through those metabots, concierges, bots, or whatever. Another key trend is about personalization of the bot. The effectiveness of a bot and assistant hinges on the ability to uncover the intent. And the context is critical. And the context hinges a lot on being able to integrate with multiple systems. And once you have it, you want to personalize the experience. And this ties back to the critical role of bots and assistants in terms of formatting the experience that is provided to consumers. What a lot of companies trying to deploy bots have found is that, of course, a bot or an assistant needs to be trained. And many practitioners are finding that training is actually harder than they initially thought. And it really sheds a lot of light on the importance of knowledge. At the end of the day, a bot or an assistant is here to provide answers to someone. That answer needs to exist somewhere in the form of a knowledge base. So you need to have that knowledge. Second, a lot of those technology are enabled because they have access to data, but data needs to be of good quality. And as the old adage says, crap in, crap out. So if the data you're planning to use is not of good quality, you will have terrible results from the bots. And everybody has his own horror stories. There's a lot on the internet about bots that are incapable of providing good answers. So the issue, the technology can be fantastic, but when it derails, it can have a very dramatic impact. So the importance of knowledge and having quality data is another key trend. I know and I appreciate there's a lot of concerns about what AI will do to the future of job. I actually don't know exactly. What we can say for sure is today, assistants and bots, like I said, when I discussed these specialization trends, they work well for a specific set of use cases. And you get the most out of a bot when you know when to pass it on to a human. Likewise, brands are very concerned about staying in touch with the consumers. So you start to see a model where you are going to use bots and assistants for simple questions, routine requests. But as soon as the interaction is about something important and meaningful, you do want to have a person taking care of it. So everybody is combining human and assistants into a single experience. Now, this has implication on humans because with simple questions, routine requests being handled through the bot, the role of human is to actually deal with the more important moments or the more complex questions. And this is one of the reasons why we saw the rise of employee assistants. These are the assistants that help employees that will be in the evolving world ask to take care of more sophisticated, higher stakes type moments with the customers. We spoke about tech giants massively investing in the technology, so the FAMGAs and the BACs. So what's happening is they are investing because they want to own, they want to become the digital entry points, and they want to own as much of the experience that we as consumers have with the digital world. Now, the technology, they have a vested interest to have as many people as possible using their technology. But remember that AI gets better as it learns. So those tech giants, they're not only just investing, but they're also making their technology available. So, for example, Facebook has made a lot of its technology available as open source. There's a lot of projects that use TensorFlow. TensorFlow is available as well to anyone. And when, excuse me, those players are not making it available as open source, they create platforms. And they price platforms that are pretty powerful in a very aggressive way. So it's accelerating, if you wish, the making this technology available to the masses, and it's further accelerating the market. And last but not least, analytics are becoming critical. So again, because those systems are learning systems, analytics are critical, number one. Number two, analytics are growingly playing a key role in understanding what works, what doesn't, what could work, and guiding the improvement of the assistant. Now, we need to think about assistants and bots combined with the notion of conversation. And what enterprises and bot provider wants to understand is not just analytics at the point of interaction, but analytics for the full conversations with all the back and forth, the entire dialogue. And eventually, if you project some of the trends I've been discussing, we will be in a world with proliferation of digital entry points. It's impossible for any companies to be present with people at every entry point into the web, into online, into machines. So the entry points are going to be those machines, those assistants and bots. And for a brand, those machines, those bots, those assistants are the ones that interact with the customers, that understand how consumers are feeling about product and services. So the strategic nature of analytics is not just to help make things work. it is going over time to provide feedback and insights in this future world that we're building on how consumers are using and the experience they're getting with your product and services. So this concludes the presentation part of this program. And with this, I'm going to hand it over to Philippe for the Q&A session.
Yes, so again, right, you can ask question by hitting on the Q&A box right in the middle of the screen. I have one question from Jean-Claude who was asking, how do you see the evolution of personalization? What's going to be the source of personalization in the B2C domains with the exception of the customer historical data? Yeah.
So what we see for a lot of businesses is they're trying to get their act together. 2 weeks ago, there was a big event in San Francisco called Dreamforce from Salesforce. The highlight was Customer 360, which is technology to actually combine different information about the same customers and be able to aggregate, correlate it to provide a more comprehensive view. So definitely one source of personalization will be customer data that today resides in multiple systems. And we see a lot of activity into this domain. There's a second set of personalization, which is a little bit difficult to predict because the world is changing, is the information that you can gather on people based on what they do on the web. The crisis that happened with, which was unveiled when people really uncovered the magnitude of the information that Facebook was able to gather about us individual and to share, got a lot of people upset. The reality is many of the large players are gathering tons of data. This is why they're offering all those products and services for free. In effect, it's not for free. They get in exchange a lot of data about you, and they use it today mostly for advertisement or recommendation of product and services. So there's different ways to actually gather this information. It's changing. We had earlier this year a new set of regulation coming from Europe called GDPR to protect the public, individuals, about information being gathered and used about them. California, where I live, has actually issued a set of similar recommendation that is supposed to take in effect in 2020. So policies are being crafted to protect consumers, but the reality is there's still a lot of information that can be gathered and correlated based on the activity that we have on the web. So let me give you a concrete example for businesses. When someone check an article, you can find the IP address. If the IP address can be reverse lookup, you can find that that person is from this company, and you can infer based on a spike of similar interest from a given company, you may infer that that given company has a problem of a given nature, was looking for some kind of product and services, and can use it for personalization.
Nicolas, we have plenty of questions. So the next questions is, I'm gonna bundle two questions, one from Andrea and one from Larry. It's around ethics for bots. Which companies are working on ethical framework, and then is there any legislation, or is there anything being created around privacy for bots? So any thoughts on those points?
It's a big issue. I'm still in the process of exploring this type of new offering. Something that is becoming important is, well, there's actually two things that are becoming important. So I don't know if we'll generate specific technology or be part of a kind of standard operating procedure, this notion of uncanny valley. And number two is the notion of transparency. So I'm going to start with transparency because it ties back to what I just mentioned. There's growing request to provide transparency on what you give in terms of data, but as well how some decisions are taken. Bots and assistants, they provide answers based on the way they have been trained, and we are finding that they can be biased in the training. So there's no real solution today to this problem, better than trying to explain why a given decision was taken. And you see from time to time some articles explaining that, for example, for recruitment, an assistant was kind of biased towards a given gender. And I assume that we're going to see those issues popping up regularly, and they will, we will need to figure out a way to make sure that there's no bias in the training.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
So, and the uncanny valley is simply, I think today the industry is pretty much in line in the fact that when you talk to a machine, it should be clear that it's a machine. The machine should not try to trick you in pretending it's a human.
Yes. So next question is around from class, and it's around search engine. Is the search engine market going to be blown open? Thanks again for speed because of speech and bots. Any thought on that?
Yeah, I mean, the market is definitely changing. In the past, it was possible for early entrants to build organically some kind of unfair presence in the digital world. If you listen to what the specialists such as Moz are finding, is that search is now skewed towards large established brands. So it's becoming more difficult. Now, what's happening is that for given product and services, what really matters is your community. So we start to see that search engine optimization is evolving and becomes much more focused in some kind of communities. So that's one key trend that is going to rebalance, I think, what's going on with search engine optimization. The second one is those assistants are going to basically be the entry point for a large chunk of interactions. So whoever has them will be able, based on how it's going to dispatch the interaction, to actually control a lot of the awareness of different brands. So these are trends that we start to see happening now as we speak.
So now I have two questions. I'm not sure we can answer this one, but it's from Kitan, which is how are you familiar with robotic process automation, and how is it different from communication-oriented intelligent bots?
I'm actually very familiar on robotic process automation. I wrote a paper for a company on that.
Okay.
If you send me the email to share it. So,
yep.
Robotic process automation is a software robot that is going to replicate what the human is doing on a computer. So today there are numbers of back office work, and it's starting to penetrate customer service where, for example, if you buy a new phone online, the agent who is going to take your order is actually going to input the information in multiple systems. One may be to ship you the phone, one to ship you the SIM card, one in different system to set you up as a customer, enter your credit card. There's a lot of repeat tasks that takes a lot of times. And when you think about it, it's same information entered in multiple systems. So you can use a software robot to actually automate this repetitive process. So it's a software robot. It's not conversational, and there's no AI in. So this is what those RPA are. Now, RPA can also use artificial intelligence in order to discover some processes that can be automated. But there's a big difference between robotic process automation that is kind of repetitive from conversational AI, where you have a question, you determine an intent, and you have this back and forth. So these are different technologies actually that complement each other very well.
And I have another follow-on question, which is, are they going to eat from Ben? Are they going to eat their market, each of them eat their market, or are they going to merge? What's the future?
The short-term future is that both markets are growing extremely rapidly. And my observation is that there's so much growth in the individual markets that for now they are relatively disjoint. The area where there's the most overlap are conversational marketing and customer service. It's starting, and what will happen and emerge is actually the technology will be available on the platform when you can decide what to use when. There are certain numbers of tasks that can be automated in a pretty mechanic way. This is where robotic process automation can be used. And there are some tasks that are more a better handle through a conversational model. And ideally, you would like to have two tools in your toolbox to be able to adjust the experience. So that's what I can see for both conversational marketing and customer service, with customer service being probably the most active market.
Great. Hey, Nicolas, thank you so much. I have another 7 questions. So what we're going to do is we're going to type those questions and then send it to you so you can answer. We're also going to take you up on your offer to circulate your white paper on RPA, because I think that's a very important trend in the industry at this point. So if you're okay with that, we'd love to do that. So we're gonna close the session. If you can go to the next slide, Nicolas. We have the next webinar is going to be about City as a lab. So as you all know, the government is when I talk about government, I also talk about cities and states in the US are driving the adoption of IoT and making their data open and available to a lot of people. So we are lucky to have Jay Nass. Jay is one of the luminary. He was the CIO of San Francisco, and he's one of the luminary, one of the key opinion leader in that space of City as a lab. He's gonna be together with 2 other key opinion leader of the space who have written books and are very also well known. So do not hesitate to register for this webinar as well. It's in a week, and it's going to be with Jay Nass. So Thank you so much for spending the time. Nicolas, thank you so much for staying with us. Great presentation. I think we have everybody saying that it's awesome, and it was an awesome presentation. So thank you so much, and looking forward to the next update in 3 months.